And well, viewers, again, thank you for joining us this morning. So, moving on for what we have on the rundown for today. So, joining us on set is Mr. Nigel Phillip, and he is a gender officer in the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. And we are going to be discussing about the gender, understanding the gender unit in Tobago. Because yes, we do have a gender unit here in Tobago, and so we are here just to give you an idea and pass along the information to you, the public, so that you know how you can utilize the services offered by the gender unit. So a special and good morning and welcome to you, Mr.
Hi,
Nigel Phillip.
good
How are you?
morning. I'm good, actually. I'm good. Great being here this morning. Yeah.
All right, so let's start with an overview of the gender unit. What is it? What does it entail?
Okay, so the gender unit is within the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. So we are one of the many units that is within the building, in the structure of itself of the organization. So what the gender unit does, basically, we assist persons in vulnerable situations. We address issues of gender-based violence. We address issues of matters that dealing with students at schools. So we are in the schools. We are in different programs throughout Tobago, men's group. We address issues that affect both men and also issues that affect female.
All right. Now, Ananta, tell me a bit about some of the programs. Let's start with especially
Sure.
the ones towards gender-based violence.
Right.
Sorry, because you know that's a huge thing.
Right.
It's sort of like a underbelly thing that's happening here
Right.
in Tobago. It's unfortunate,
Right.
but
Yeah. One of the things within the gender unit is that we have a base, because in order for us to do our work effectively, we need to have persons on the ground. So persons on the ground would be like the NGOs, different NGO groups. We would have the religious-based organizations, and we will also network with other agencies like in Trinidad. So we also network with the Ministry of Gender Affairs, and we also network with international organizations like the UN organizations, which helps in our work. So what we do in terms that we address issues of gender-based violence. So we provide support for persons who come into our office that is affected by gender-based violence. We also work very closely with the TTPS, the police services, the victim and support unit. When cases of domestic violence or gender-based violence come to hand, they will refer the matter to us, where we do further intervention to assist the client that comes into our office. Beyond that, we also provide support to the NGOs who are also on the ground. And those type of support will be basically training, because we would have offered training in terms of how to deal with violence, because sometimes persons go to those organizations for help and they may not be equipped to deal with the situation. So we provide the training. We also provide support with regards to funding. If they have a program and they want us to support them in the districts or the villages, we would provide that support for them in their areas.
no, as you mentioned, the training and so on offered to NGOs. Is
Yeah.
there an attempt to sort of like standardize, like what is expected in terms of the service delivery from these NGOs, so that I don't know they can work with the gender unit? Like how does it work?
Okay, so presently right now, from 2020 to present right now, we have been working with the Spotlight Initiative. The Spotlight Initiative is a program designed to assist persons who in gender-based violence. So it educates them. We have different aspects of the program, and one of those aspects is that where we work with those NGOs. So the training that we will offer them is like training, like we had training in sexual violence and how to deal with sexual violence. We have training in, we would have done training in shelter management, and we would have tried to do training with key persons on the ground. So the key persons on the ground would be the judiciary, we do the police services, those like first responders. So first responders would also be like the medical sectors as
Yes.
well when they go into the medical services. So those are the training to equip persons with the first responders, and also when we look at those other groups on the ground, the other training is like for support, counseling support. How do you gauge the intervention when they come to you, and to refer persons to the right services, because sometimes persons who go to the wrong services and the treatment that they would have gotten would not direct to what it is for the problem that they're engaging with. So training basically is that how do we point persons to the services to get the right treatment and to help the person to be empowered to become self-reliant when in terms of dealing with the abuse itself.
Certainly.
Yes. Yeah.
How, from your figures and from your work,
Mm.
what has been the experience about the number and the statistics about how many people are affected by domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence has a season, if you want to relate to that. Domestic violence has, like, for example, during the COVID period, there would have been a rise in gender-based violence, or if you want to
Mm,
call it domestic violence, because people were closed into one space, and
yes.
then therefore the perpetrator would have been in the same space with with the victim. Some persons would seek help, some persons would stay there in silence and not bother to seek help. Now, when I talk about seasons, we have, like, for example, in Tobago, we have different celebrations. So, like Carnival, you see that there's a spike in domestic violence cases. You have Christmas, you see there's a spike in domestic violence cases, or maybe around the summer period when children has to get books. Because what those seasons would have indicate is that for Carnival, persons goes out to party. Persons have been insecure. All
Hmm.
right. For Christmas, people have demands of wanting to have money and not having the money. So then, therefore, they may have stresses in the household that may cause the violence. They might also have the aspect of substance abuse, which also is a subset to the violence that persons undergo within the household. So when we look at in terms of the rise and fall, there are different periods that sometimes you have a spike in terms of cases that comes to the unit, or cases that are being reported to the police, or cases that are being referred to different units within the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection, to seek any necessary intervention or mediation needed where as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we are going into March, which is traditionally we celebrate women.
Mm-hmm.
March Women's Day, the International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th.
Yes.
What are some of the plans that the gender unit has for the month of March?
Okay, so when we look at the highlight of International Women's Day, we look at the achievements of women, we look at the empowerment of women, where women was before to where they are now. So one of the things that the gender unit would have networked, because one of the things that we do to do our work efficiently is to network. And within our division, we have several units, and Reach is one of the units that we network with, and where we try to empower women, where we're going to have a Reach Expo. We would have had the same thing last year, and we decided to do the same thing again this year, and where we encourage persons who would have received grant funding through the unit and who have their small business to bring them, to show them, to highlight them, in terms of encourage them to get more business. And we going to have that on not March 8th, but it's going to celebrate after the celebration, where we're going to expose women in business to see how they can gain more independency and more self-reliant sufficiency within their household.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, yes, we have spent some time talking about
Yeah.
women because, of course, that is a major part of, dealing with gender issues. But men are also a part of the discussion. And I know you guys offer some services towards men. So I want you to
Yeah.
talk a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, when you talk gender, definitely you have to include the men in the space when you talk gender. Um, how do we empower men? Because men, most times that they are forgotten in this
Yes,
space.
they are.
But the gender unit, one of the things is that we work with a lot of men organization in Tobago, and there are very large men organization in Tobago that works very well with the gender unit. One of the things that we would have done and is doing is that we would have, for International Men's Day going there, which was in November, we would have had a health session where persons can go to the Blue Room to get their assessment in terms of men's health. And one of the things why we focus on men's health, because also men's health could also be a subset to abuse. So we try to deal with it on that angle. And then I also do engagement with men's group and sessions in terms of gender-based violence, in terms of self-esteem. And we also work with groups at schools. So we would have engaged children who would have from the Learning Enrichment Center up in Hope, where we do sessions on self-esteem, on bullying, and in terms that we try to work with young persons who would eventually go into relationships or have marriages, so that how they could deal with stresses or how to deal with issues when faced with them.
Now, what are some of the problems or the issues uh, that you guys found that are quite prevalent among men?
One of the things that I would see coming out is low self-esteem, And the reason why I say low self-esteem, because just before coming on set there, I was reading on the news that a 23-year-old committed suicide last night. And his reason for committing suicide was because of infidelity, because of his girlfriend. And the thing is that men tend to deal with themselves differently. They may not want to talk. They may talk to someone and they may get the wrong set of advice. So low self-esteem is one of the things that men suffers from. And the other thing is that having to deal with themselves.
Yes.
Right? Because most of them don't know how to deal with themselves. So they may turn to alcohol, they may turn to drugs, they may turn to various types of relationship because it thinks that that's way how they express their manhood or whatever. Because society tends to view men differently and how men should react. And they tend to box men into a certain circle. And then when they box men into that particular circle, and then the stresses come, is that they don't know how to deal with that stress. So sometimes they explode and they may take the situations into their own hands, where you see we have in terms of crimes and men murdering their wife or their spouse and those things because they have not been dealing with it. Whereas the woman, on the other hand, will go talk about their issues, seek the necessary help. And even though they suffer in silence, they still seek and they take the burden to take it through because of the home and their children for their
And then
family.
there are a lot of services for women as opposed to men.
Well, there are to a point, but what I'm saying is that the services are there for the men. The men just have to access the services.
And
Right?
the gender unit is
Right.
there.
So, and the gender unit is there. So we would point you to these services and how to access these services. So when you come into us, it's not just dealing with issues of gender-based violence. We deal with issues of intervention. So if there's a matter that comes to us, and I was indicating before, there are different services in the unit that way we could point you to get the necessary help. So we have help with substance abuse. If you have help with the mediation, we have different things with grants and all these different things that persons can be advised. And then where we are in this new building, all the services under social protection are in one. So it's much easier for persons to be directed to those services to get the necessary help.
So if someone wants help, whether they be man or woman or even children, how should they approach the division?
Well, most people, and I want to say this very kind of discreetly, because most people think when they come to the division, they come for support. And so there are different types of support, and you have all right to come for the different support that we have at the division. But if you need the necessary help or intervention, you can approach our new building, our offices, which is in Montessori Drive in Glen Road, Scarborough, Tobago. And you can come into any of the offices, or you can ask the security and you can point you to the gender office, and we could have a discussion. It could be on anything. We can have a discussion. And then we will ascertain and say, well, okay, we think that, you maybe be qualified, or we could refer you to see if you're qualified for a certain assistance at another unit. So, or you could also contact us at 639-3395 is also our contact information, or 729-5818, which is also our another contact information. So, help is always available. But and again, just to say this as well, because we network with so many organizations, sometimes the help already comes from the organization. We would point you to get the help, because sometimes you will get the help at the organization, but sometimes do the assessment and the screening may take some time. So we have other organizations there that supports us with regards to giving the help to persons on the ground who visit our offices.
Do you monitor the help that is offered to people?
Yes, we do. And when I say we monitor, is that we can't monitor everyone who comes in, but we have a database that we assess persons, and persons are in that database. Okay. But we have community social services workers within the community who would have seen persons, and persons who they would have engaged with, they will be able to follow up on their services in terms of how they're doing. But sometimes persons may come in for food support, and it may just be a one-off.
Right.
And you have them in your system, but they can come back if there are other issues are underlying. So yes, we do have follow-up sessions, but with regards to gender-based violence or any sort of violence, we naturally, that is automatic, that you have to have the necessary follow-up. If the client say, here, back off, we don't need your help anymore, because there's some persons will show it that we don't need your help anymore. But the fact is that we cannot say we're not helping. We would wait there until when they're ready to come and receive the help at the division.
Certainly. Now, I want to move on also to the UNDP sustainable goals, because one of the goals 5, is that of gender equality and that sort of thing. How does that mandate fit in with the mandate of the gender unit?
Well, when we talk about gender equality, we looked at basically, having equal rights for both men and women. Now, it is a discussion that some persons may not agree with, and I said may not agree with because of your morals and your religion and
Certainly.
those things, right? But from the government standpoint, from the public sector standpoint, I would say it's something that we will promote, right? And the reason why we promote it is because is that women are doing the same thing as men, right? And in some countries, women are being paid less than men for the same work that is being done, right? And in some cases, even the same work that is being done by women is being done better than what some men will do. So to talk about the aspect of gender equality, I do support it. And you looked at even within our public sphere in Tobago, we have women in politics. For example, our own secretary within the Division of Health, Dr. Faith Yesel, and we have other women who are in public life and in high spaces in public life. So the same thing that men can do, the women can do. So I don't see, for me, from a personal standpoint, an issue with regards to equality when it comes to equality and equality rights. But then I cannot tell persons within their moral support of their religion or their sectors
Yes.
if that will work for you or if it will. So it is a personal choice in terms of that, or morals in terms of if you want to go that way in terms of equality. But I support equality and gender equality and equity across the table. The same rights that men should have, women should also have it because I don't believe one is less than the other.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And now what about in terms of persons with different sexual orientation? And, there is violence that's on that happens. And I know this is a touchy subject because in some ways, I don't think the population of Tobago is quite at that point. But we have to deal with the reality. It is happening within our society.
Yes, it is a reality, and it's a reality that you speak very cautiously.
Yes, I have to watch my words.
Yes, it's a reality you speak very cautiously on. But again, it's a choice. I cannot tell persons what their choices may be because I may say this is right or wrong, but it may not be right or wrong for the person. And again, when we live in a state or in a country or a region where there's a lot of religious sectors, they have their own morality of their own or biblical passage that speaks into those areas or any aspect of spirituality that may speak into those areas. But on the other hand, it is not right of me or fitting of me to say this is what you should do, or it is a human right. And all over the world, it will indicate it is a human right.
Certainly.
So I cannot tell someone what you're doing is right or wrong. You have to know to yourself if this is what you want for yourself and it's within your space or confinement to your space, and you make that choice. Who are me to tell you that is wrong? Because again, it is your choice.
But is there support for persons within those relationships? Is there support from the gender unit for those persons?
Right. So when I said that we support and our strong base is having to network with organizations on the ground.
Right.
We do not discriminate. So any organization that comes to us for assistance and along the same line of the gender mandate, we would assist. So to answer your question with regards to that, yes, we have persons who would have come into the gender unit because of they would have been sexual abuse or they would have need counseling or intervention. It is our obligation and our right to assist those persons because we don't see the sexuality. We see the person who is coming for help. And if you see the person that is coming for help, then you're able to gauge the necessary help to give that person. So to say for me to segregate and to judge that we're not assisting you because of your sexual orientation, it is very wrong of me to say that. And it's person choice because I know in some organizations refuse to deal with persons because of their spiritual aspect. But the fact is that if you want to see the person move from one way from a place of empowerment, then you have to realize that you have to work with everybody without segregation and discrimination.
All right. Now, as we're getting ready to wrap up our morning's conversation, is there anything that I missed out that, or is there anything that you think that the public should know about your work at the gender unit?
What I want to express is that we welcome all persons at the gender unit, and that we would engage in whatever it is that you want us to help you with. And I say engage, that doesn't mean that everything you come that we were able to assist, but we were able to be to advise you to the various services within the organization, because our thing is empowering person to be empowered for themselves.
Yes.
Because person could say they are on the system, and it's not to say it's okay to be on the system, but you should be reached a state where you off the system where you could become independent, that you could provide for yourself and help others sustain the same independency for what you would have been given. So we are open to anyone who wants to visit our office at Monastery Drive in Glen Road, Scarborough, Tobago, and our numbers again is 639-3395 or 729-5818. Yeah.
All right. I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much,
Yeah.
Mr. Nigel Phillips. And for you viewers, if you have any problems at all and you're experiencing any relationship problems, whatever the case may be, the gender unit is there for help. You just heard all the information about how you can connect with them. So don't sit and take whatever the situation is. Seek help.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And don't worry, viewers, we have a lot more coming up for you on the program. So we'll see you after the break.
Rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise. The energy fill the skies. I say